Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We do have a, sorry y'all seem so far away. We have to really talk loud up here. We have a full agenda. Tonight is the January 23rd Social Circle Planning Commission meeting. We do have a full agenda. We do have, for the record, a quorum with the new member absent. There is a agenda revision. So the discussion for board appointments will not be on this, so the chair needs a motion to amend the agenda to remove item 2.
So motion.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a unanimous second. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. We have the minutes from the December 27th meeting. Has everybody had an opportunity to review those? If so, if there's any errors or omissions that need to be stated, state it now. If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes this week reports, but that should be in condition.
We have a motion to approve the minutes. Is there a second?
A second.
Okay. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. So we have several public hearings tonight. Ashley, do you want to read is there rules of public hearings you'd like to go over first and foremost?
If you want to get that while I get ready for the staff
Sure.
report, yeah.
So before we begin tonight, some rules, general rules about public hearings. We'll call each item on the agenda as listed. Staff will introduce the item, go over the item, go over a staff report. The applicant will then be given an opportunity. We'll open up the public hearing. The applicant will be given an opportunity to speak. Applicant may speak for 10 minutes. They may reserve some time for rebuttal. Upon the conclusion of the applicant's presentation, we'll open up the floor to those who would like to speak in favor of the request. Again, a total of 10 minutes, not individual 10 minutes, but a total of 10 minutes. We'll then close that portion of the public hearing and open it up to those who would like to speak in opposition of the request. You've all signed in, and that's the direction you'll be called upon. Upon conclusion of those in opposition, the Planning Commission may have additional questions for the staff or the applicant. We'll conclude, deliberate, and we make a recommendation. Our recommendation is then forwarded to the mayor and council, who will have a similar public hearing next month for these items. Their decisions, they'll render a decision at that meeting. Now, I'll say this, sometimes these items can be hotly contested. When you are speaking, you are to speak directly to the Planning Commission and not address members of the audience. Members of the audience, if there's something you don't agree with when someone is speaking, please hold your comment. We're not at a concert. We don't need to hear you from the back. We'll hear you at the podium when called upon. With that said, moving into the first item, it is a variance request number 1 of 2024. Ashley, will you introduce this item for us, please?
Absolutely. So this variance request may seem a little familiar to you guys. It is a variance from section 3.3.13.A.1 of the Unified Development Code, which states that a fuel station cannot exist closer than 2,500 feet from an existing fuel station. This is for the proposed fuel station at the 3 parcels that have an address at 1511, 1515, and 1521 North Cherokee. So 2 of those 3 properties were rezoned by Mayor and Council at the June 19th meeting to business. The 3rd property was actually zoned business. I know when we looked at this as a special use, there was actually a Scrivener's error on the map. It was shown as O&I, but that was corrected back in, I think, May of 2022. So they're all zone business, but the specific use standards for a fuel station are covered under section 3.3.13.A. And point 1 of that section states that any new fuel station shall be located at least 2,500 feet from an existing fuel station measured property line to property line, regardless of the city limits. The closest fuel station is the Chevron on North Cherokee Road over there by Mammy's and Grace Nails, Subway, all that. And that is less than 1,400 feet away from these properties. My measurement map shows that it is 1,394 feet, property line to property line. So that would put it well within the 2,500 feet, that's required by the code for separation from fuel stations. And staff recommends denial of the variance request to section 3.3.13.A.1 at 1511, 1515, and 1521 North Cherokee, also known as tax parcels SC 120034, 028, and 029.
Ashley, thank you for going over that with us. Real quick, the property in question, they have conditions of zoning. One of those conditions were upon rezoning, they were to be combined.
Correct, yes.
Has that occurred yet?
That has not occurred. I believe they were, I believe the applicant is under contract, and this is speculation, so you're more than welcome to ask the applicant.
Okay.
But I believe they are under contract, and if this request were to get approved, or if they move forward with developing the property, I mean, they would have to combine all three properties, so I think they were just waiting to see if this project were to get approved, they would combine all three properties, so it would end up meeting that condition.
And there are conditions additionally placed on that regarding buffers and planting
Correct.
requirements, so on and so forth. That's
Yes,
right.
I believe it was an increase, this is just off the top of my head, but I believe it was a buffer of 40 feet on the southern part, so long as the use remained residential on that property to the south
That's
of it.
Thank you so much for that. Any questions for staff that the planning commission has at this time? At this time, we'll open up the public hearing. The applicant is Darshan Patel, but the applicant's agent is Tip Nguyen. Tip?
This is Andrew with you.
So, as a point of clarification, Tip, you were the registered applicant, or the agent for the applicant. Ms. Gray has signed up to speak in favor as a member of the public. So at this time, we'll hear from the applicant, and that would be you or Mr. Patel.
I submitted a letter on my letterhead as part of this application to be his attorney. I don't think I can be denied the right to represent him as his attorney.
Well, I'm not denying you the right to be his attorney, no ma'am, Ms. Gray, but what I'm saying is you're not listed on our paperwork as the registered agent for this. The engineer Tip is.
Do you want to read the presentation that I sent to you? They're not gonna let me do it.
Oh, so she can't present?
No, sir, she's not the registered agent representing you or the property owners in this request.
Okay.
Tip is. Tip can give the presentation on your behalf. She has signed up to speak in favor.
Okay,
She can certainly speak in favor, but
gotcha.
just point of order.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman, my name is Tip Nguyen. I'm with Alcody Consulting Engineering. We prepared the conceptual plans for this project, and we have went through staff comments, showed the 40 feet buffer to the south, show planted buffer. I also show a privacy fence as per discretion from the previous meeting, that the property to the south, property owner to the south is concerned about the possibility of people accessing her property from this business. So we propose a fence there. Also, staff has comments about planting shrubs to block off parkings from visibility from the road. So I've chose planting to accommodate that as well. And also the parking calculation, staff said that this property is limited to 31 spaces. I have reduced the amount of space to meet that requirement. And I believe that we have met every demand that staff has made. And so I asked the planning commission for approval of this project. And I reserve the time for other consultants.
Okay. There's 8 minutes and 40 seconds. Tip, before you step down, there may be questions of you as the agent. Are there any questions of Mr. Hunt at this time? I've got one, Tip. So we're hearing the variance request as reducing the distance requirement. And variances shall be consistent with the intent of the UDC and the comprehensive plan. what is the hardship to justify granting a variance to reduce that distance requirement between fueling stations for this piece of property?
Yes, sir, in this, Andrew Gray presented additional
Okay.
to what I'm proposing, but the distance requirement is, we're on two separate streets, where the proposed gas station is on Highway 11, on the other side of the bypass, and the existing gas station is on North Cherokee Road, as entering the city, and so we are serving separate populations, and targets are customer targets are definitely different for this gas station versus the other, and so my client believe that he's not directly competing with the other gas stations, and that this is a different case than what's laid out in the regulations.
Okay. Are there any questions? Thank you, Tip. Like I said, there's 8 minutes and 40 seconds remaining for rebuttal should you need it.
Yes, sir.
At this time, we will call for Ms. Gray. You're the first to speak.
Sorry, just get my presentation keyed up there. Good evening. I'm Andrea Gray. I'm here on behalf of Mr. Patel and his request for a special use permit and a variance to construct a gas station. I'm going to combine my presentation potentially, but we'll see what happens on the next round for both of the requested permissions here. If you go to the next slide, please. As Ashley conveyed to you, I think you all know where this is located, but it is a combination of 3 parcels which total 1.87 acres that is already zoned appropriately for the use that we're requesting and already in the commercial character area just outside the city limits. Next slide, please. Here's a depiction of the site plan. Starting from the center of the site, there's a 3,850 square foot convenience store. It's flanked on either side by 1,500 square foot retail spaces. Mr. Gates, as you mentioned, there's a 40-foot planted buffer that we show there, and the requirement in the zoning was that those be planted with 6-foot trees to start. On this site plan, different from the one you saw before, is that we've added some tree buffering against North Cherokee or Highway 11. We also reduced the number of parking spaces, and we moved the dumpster to the rear of the property and added screening back there in accordance with the staff comments on the initial round of the consideration of this plan. Next slide, please. Here's a rendering of what it may look like. Again, final plans will be done after the appropriate approvals are received. But here you'll see a picture of a convenience store in the center and then 2 retail spaces on either side. And again, it's a very attractive building with brick accents, and that's what my client intends to do on this property. Next slide, please. Again, tonight you're being asked for approval of a variance and a special use permit. The variance being from the 2,500-foot distance between property boundary to property boundary for gas stations, and special use permit generally required for gas stations. There are several distinguishing factors for this project and for this property that I ask you to consider when you're weighing the variance and the special use permit. One is, I think, and Tip pointed out very importantly, that the gas stations, the nearest gas stations are on separate roads. My client's property is on Highway 11, and the nearest gas station, the Chevron, is on North Cherokee Road. You cannot see one from the other. And I think your ordinance's intent of not having a gas station on every corner, and not having a gas station more than every half mile doesn't really apply here because they're not on the same road and you cannot see one from the other. One is serving a customer base of travelers heading down towards the bypass, down towards the industrial parks where there's large employment centers, and the others are purposefully turning to go to your city downtown. So this project will actually alleviate some of the traffic that wouldn't otherwise turn to go towards your downtown. Again, so that is a different customer base. And again, with all the industry being built out towards Stanton Springs, there's a need for this gas station to service all those commuters coming down Highway 11. Next slide, please. Here's a depiction of the nearest gas stations from my client's property. Heading north back up towards Monroe, the closest station is 5.6 miles, and that's the truck stop up there at 11 and Leroy Anderson Road. We already talked about the closest gas station by driving miles is the Chevron, and it's half a mile if you're driving. And then the closest to the south is heading down towards I-20, and that's about 5.8 miles. So there's a good distance between other gas stations in my client's property, including the closest one, which is 0.5 miles away. And of course, the hardship of not being granted the variance is just not being able to develop a gas station at all. This is the least, the least requirement that we need to have met to be able to do the proposed project under any circumstances. Next slide, please. Also, my client's property is directly across the street from the Hard Labor Creek Watershed Protection Area. That protection area prohibits gas stations to be built in it at all. And so to the extent that you are concerned at all about future gas stations or the county approving gas stations nearby, they cannot do it east of North Cherokee or Highway 11, going all the way down past the bypass as you head down to Hard Labor Creek. So there's another protection and another special circumstance that applies to this property that may not apply to others that apply for variances down the road. Next slide, please. So all the requirements for a special use permit have been met, and these were in the staff report, and the boxes have been checked. The site, of course, accommodates the proposed gas station by size and shape. Adequate public facilities are available. There's no sewer, but my client is going to have on-site septic. All the special use standards are met. It won't result in any destruction, loss, or damage of any natural, cultural, scenic, or historic features of importance. It's consistent with the comp plan and not a detriment to the public interest. Next slide, please. Likewise, it meets the requirements for a variance to be granted. It's generally consistent with the comp plan. Special conditions exist, again, regarding the distance to the nearest gas station, but when you look at driving miles, when you look at what road it's on, state highway versus city road, and being adjacent to the water protection district, special circumstances do apply. My client did not create this situation, this need for a variance. Again, the variance is the very minimum we need to be able to develop a gas station on this property. A literal interpretation of the ordinance prohibiting this is really a hardship because, again, when you think about why is that in the ordinance? Well, you didn't want a gas station on every corner. You didn't want a gas station on the same road every half a mile. And that's not what would happen here if my client were granted permission to build his gas station on this property. This is the minimum variance that we could request and still be able to develop the property. And again, in the staff report, I think the main concern expressed was with regard to setting a precedent. And the special circumstances here, I think, would eliminate that from being set as a precedent. What other variance is going to have, be on Highway 11 next to the Watershed Protection District and over half a mile by driving and not visible from the second location. And so, again, we think that the special circumstances here warrant granting a variance and a special use permit. Next slide. And so with that, I'll wrap up. Again, I can divide my presentation into two, but depending on how we proceed, I may speak in favor of the second request as well. I would be happy to answer any questions that the board may have of me.
None at this time. Just 2 minutes and 45 seconds remaining. The next person we have signed up is Mr. Patel. Would you like to speak in favor of this request?
I think they've pretty much covered everything.
Okay. We have no other individuals signed up to speak for. At this time, we will take those who signed up to speak in opposition. First is Randy Davidson.
Trinity South Common.
Thank you. Somebody else.
My name is Randy Davidson. I wish to speak in opposition to granting this variance as well as a special use permit allowing the fuel station as described here. My wife, Regina Davidson, and my daughter, Andrea Reeves, are co-owners of the house at 1501 North Cherokee Road, immediately adjacent to the proposed location. My daughter and her husband live in that house. We have attended and commented on this proposed project at each opportunity before the planning commission and the mayor and council. We've expressed opposition to the construction of a fuel station for a variety of reasons, which are documented in the planning commission and mayor and council minutes of prior meetings. I will not repeat those concerns here. I think they're pretty well covered. I do, however, want to clearly state that the current revised plan, with admittedly only minor changes, do not resolve our concerns. Today, I wish to focus on the requested variance. Distance limitations are common within local and state zoning and/or land use regulations for fuel stations all across the country. The City of Social Circle developed the UDC and specified 2,500 feet measured property line to property line as prescribed as the minimum distance between existing and new stations. The requested variance reduces this distance to 1,394 feet, or only 56% of the required distance. That is illustrated on a copy of the aerial photo from the last staff meeting. The applicant's January 10, 2024 letter to you suggests that the distance should be measured by road, not an option within the UDC, and twice asserts that this quote, by road distance is a half mile or more. I think you just heard that again. Even a cursory examination of the staff's aerial photograph proves this 1/2 mile or 2,640 foot distance assertion is not true and greatly overstates the actual by road distance. A more accurate by road measurement, which I did myself, and I admit that it may be off somewhat, using Google Maps, comes with a distance of somewhere between 1,700 and 1,850 feet, depending on whether it's measured driveway to driveway or roadside lot corner to roadside lot corner. It also is influenced somewhat by how you go through the four-way intersection. Whether you're going north, it's a little longer, and if you're coming south, it's a little shorter. I believe this by-road alternative is misleading, inappropriate, and should be totally disregarded in the consideration of this variance. The applicant's letter also introduces several other, quote, analysis factors, all of which probably have been discussed with regard to this project, but they include generation of tax revenues, a focus on distant fuel stations along Highway 11, the presence of the watershed protection district, and a location outside the direct view from the Chevron and North Cherokee Road. In my opinion, none of these factors provide adequate justification for approval of a requested variance from the UDC regulation. Nor are they directly germane to deciding the suitability of this specific location for a fuel station. And that's all I have. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Davidson.
Thank you.
Next speaker we have is Andrea Reeves. We have 446. Is that what you had?
Yeah, I started a little late.
I'm handing my petition to deny to you.
So, for the record, I want to hand this down to Ms. Davis. This is a petition to encourage the decline of special use permit at gas station 1511 North Cherokee. And there's signatures on here. Thank you, but there's no addresses to verify, but for the record.
Okay, thank you.
And Ms. Reeves, you're the only other person signed up to speak in opposition. There's 4 minutes and 46 seconds remaining.
This is to the opposition of the variance request. One of the things I do want to remind everybody is the possibility of lighting. When too many gas stations go out of business, the tanks are left underground. The market area population in this rural town, I don't feel is large enough to support another gas station because there are 7 stations within a 2-mile radius outside of Social Circle or in. So the closed up stations, like the Valero that's here in town, that we know is closed up, imparts a visual light to this area which can harm commercial and residential further development and depress values of existing properties, leading to declining population and a stagnant local economy. Because of contamination issues, the cost of removing buried tanks and other factors is very high and very risky to health, for health reasons. And redevelopment can take years. And that's all I want to say about the distance variance request. And I'm going to read my other letter.
So at this time, there's no other speakers in opposition. Tip, you do have 8 minutes and 40 seconds of rebuttal, should you wish to.
Yes.
Okay.
Chairman, I understand the owner concern, but I brought up many in the previous meeting. There are gas stations all over the United States. We have gas stations for a very long time, and yes, there are risks, but we have provided buffer, we provide distances, and I believe that my client has his right to use his property, and I believe that this is not a request that is outside of what the intent of the ordinance, the zoning ordinance calls for. I believe that Miss Andrea we understand, yes, he doesn't plan to go out of business anytime soon, so that's not on his mind at this time. And we do understand the adjacent owner concern, but we have provided as many of their requests as possible. I know they previously brought up the danger of fueling stations and their health concern. We have gas stations all over the United States, and so there are not people people have, live next to them, we use it all the time. We are here asking for this variance so that my client can open his business, to operate and to operate his business inside the social circle. And I understand the adjacent owner concerns, but some of these are prevailing. There are other people who live next to gas stations that experience no health risks. So I ask that the planning commission seriously consider approval for this project.
Okay.
And I referenced the previous meeting for the other concern that the adjacent owner brought up.
Are there any other questions of the applicant at this time? Thank you.
There were one other item, there were concerned that the side businesses are too much for this site. This site is governed by a septic system, and so when we go into the design phase, we'll have to select the type of business that would be suitable for the allotment of the existing area that we're reserved for the septic system, and therefore it can't be any type of business, but it will have to be strategically selected so that those businesses aren't generating a lot of sewer capacity that the site will not allow. And so the suites on the side will have to be something that's not quite as sewer capacity demand as a restaurant or anything like that.
Okay. Thank you, Tip. All right, so we've heard from the applicant, we've heard from members supporting, members here tonight of opposition. I do actually have a question for this piece of property, zone business. The future land use category is commercial, correct?
Correct.
And straight out of our comp plan, commercial land use category in which business is a compatible zoning. Identifies, for the land use map, identifies areas, for all those. Remember, the land use is kind of the guide, and the zoning ordinance is what gets us the meat and potatoes to the guide. Commercial land use is area that's provide opportunity for a strong sense of entry into the city, and this obviously fits as it's one of our northern boundary parcels, is entry into the city. It goes on to say that this area is intended to support medical offices and facilities, grocery stores, and similar large retail. So just think about some things like that. Looking at ordinance section 13.8.8, criteria for variances, the variances shall be consistent with the intent of the UDC and the comprehensive plan, and shall not be injurious to the neighborhood or otherwise detrimental to the public health, safety, or welfare. And then, if you're so inclined to consider a variance, that you can place special conditions on there, like conditions of zoning, could be conditions of variance. But looking at this, when I think of a variance, you vary the standards of your ordinance because there's a unique and peculiar situation to the property, like the size, shape, topography. I'm not aware of any, and that's why I asked the applicant or the agent, what's the hardship? And the only thing I keep going back to is a financial hardship. The applicant wants to use this property for a use that has a specific distance requirement from other uses. And looking at our permitted principal use table, in this zoning district, there's, I count, 20 plus uses by right, and then there's, I didn't count how many other uses that could go there on a limited capacity. So I struggle with this idea that a variance should be granted. the variances are not a set of precedents because it's on its own merit. Each application has its own merit, and that's something that we have to consider. I don't see the need for granting a variance in this case because I don't see what the hardship is. The applicant was made aware of these requirements. He met with staff, I believe, in July, is what the staff report said, and a pre-application meeting, where the UDC was adopted the month before. I'm just, telling you from my viewpoint, from one person's vote, I don't see where a variance is justified. But this is what we're here for, is to discuss this, so someone else, please offer up your thoughts and opinions.
Well, I mean, I would tend to agree. We're not anywhere close to the distance requirement, whether or not you can see the existing gas station there. And, yeah, I don't see a hardship that would make a variance required in this case.
And the applicant did bring up a good point, I'm sorry, I can't keep my mouth shut, is that they're servicing two different clientele, one coming down Highway 11 versus one coming Cherokee. And I struggle with that, but nowhere within the criteria or supplemental standard for fuel service station does it talk about who's your primary customer. Are you on this street or that street? And I look at this, kind of if it's a corner lot, would we be facing the same situation? We may very well face the same request at a corner lot at some point. That's something that I also thought about, is that the applicant brought up, and that's a very good thing to think about. But sorry, go ahead.
So, but across the street, that's watershed area. You can't build a gas
Correct.
station there.
So in the special use staff report where you have all your maps, one of them is an overlay map, and it shows that the watershed protection is right across the street. And that watershed protection area, I believe is mostly mandated by the state.
Yeah.
So that is a correct assumption that, you can't have a gas station within that watershed protection area.
How far does that extend? And is it on both sides?
The watershed protection area, it is not on the side that these properties are on. So if you look at,
But if you cross over Cherokee and you continue to go down the bypass, is all of that watershed area as well?
Yes, sir, so the watershed would start.
all I have is the city
No,
limits,
Highway
but we
11.
can go on to
Yeah.
public too.
Highway
if we need
11
to.
east.
I mean-
is the watershed.
Yeah, so this whole chunk of the city, this kind of half.
Ooh, it's going away.
I mean, we're a small city, but you don't have to make it that small.
Yeah. So, this whole chunk of the city that's overlined by
Hash mark.
the hash marks, that is the watershed protection. So it's all on the kind of, I guess.
East side of
Yeah,
It's all on
east
the east
side
side.
of 11. Kind of goes down the center line of 11, is how I looked at it. And then it goes all the way down to East Hightower, what used to be State Route 229.
Okay. Okay. Yeah.
So that really takes a quadrant
Mm-hmm.
right there.
Yeah.
So all of those light industrial properties wouldn't be able to have a fuel station.
They'd be allowed to have fuel storage tanks
I'd have to.
as an accessory? That's a discussion for another
Yeah,
time.
Yeah.
I'd have to dig.
Sorry,
and-
that's
yeah.
a rabbit hole.
Yeah, sorry. So back to the request at hand.
I
What
just,
what are some of y'all's thoughts, discussion?
Man, we know how the city expects for it on their end. What about the state, since there's a state road that gas station gonna be on Highway 11, what would they thoughts be?
Well, I can't speak for the state, but in my experience, they don't really care what the use is there. When the property is developed, the applicant will have to apply for a DOT permit for the access in and out, so you have to have a DOT driveway. That may entail a deceleration lane, depending on the location, may require a turn lane, center turn lane in the road. But as far as what does the state think or DOT think about the placement of it, in my experience, and Ashley, please jump in, they don't care what the property is used for. They're just gonna permit and review the entry.
Yeah, that's typically how it goes.
Yeah.
If we were to send this out to comment for DOT, they would say must comply with DOT driveway standards or must comply with DOT standards. Is typically the comment that you get back from the state agency with Department of Transportation.
Because I think they assume it's already gone through the municipalities.
They don't, they
Regulations.
typically try not to get into, land use, planning and land use regulation within a municipality or a county. They try really hard not to overstep and, you know, each county and municipality have their own comp plan and all that kind of stuff, so the state doesn't really regulate land use as practice.
So if there's no other discussion items on the variance request, Cheryl, I entertain a motion.
I'm gonna motion that we recommend declining the variance request
So we have a,
based on the conditions for special use not being met, or conditions for variance not being met.
so we have a motion to recommend to deny the variance request. Is there a second? Okay, we have a second. Any other discussion? All right, seeing none, the chair calls for a vote. All those in favor of the recommendation to deny the variance, please signify by raising your hand. That was unanimous, thank you. All right, the next item is the special use permit request to establish a fueling station at 1511, 1515, and 1521 North Cherokee. Ashley, will you carry us through that presentation, please?
Yes, so without the variance, the special use, you can't really grant the special use without the variance because you, the recommended denial would affect the use of a fuel station. But just for background, the special use first came before planning and zoning in, I believe it was September, and planning and zoning tabled it at the request of the applicant. Then it came back before planning and zoning in October, where the board recommended denial, and it got sent to mayor and council, where the discussion was had that a variance would be needed no matter what. Even if the special use was granted, the variance would also have to be granted in order to build the gas station. And they opted to send it back to planning commission with the condition that the applicant apply for a variance concurrently with the special use. So that's why we heard the variance first tonight, because that would influence the special use decision typically. To kind of go over some items in the staff report, the reason they applied for a variance is because they couldn't meet the special use standards under 3.3.13.8.1. The updated site plan, which we heard about in the last public hearing, did meet the items that were outstanding on the last site plan that we saw. So the parking had been reduced to meet the parking maximums allowed, and the landscaping was added to the driveway just to make it a little bit more visually appealing. And the dumpster was moved to the rear of the property, which is also a requirement of the EDC. So the site plan did meet the issues that we had outstanding, but like I said, it doesn't meet the section of 3.3.13 point A, point one, and we also have the fact that the comprehensive plan doesn't directly address fuel stations, and in the commercial note, it only talks about, that it's intended to support medical offices, facilities, grocery stores, and similar large retail, which comprehensive plans are meant to be rather vague, to leave room for interpretation. And then in consistency, that's B of the staff analysis, question 2. We also reference that in the drafted minutes of the May Planning Commission meeting, a neighboring property owner for this property did express concerns that when we rezone this to business, that a fuel station would come, and they were concerned about, quote, the types of high-impact businesses, those that would have extensive high-intensity lighting, continuous loud noise, produce noxious fumes, construct multi-story buildings, operate 24/7, that could locate here, and any possible negative impact these might have on their residential property. And they also expressed those concerns at the June 20th public hearing in front of mayor and council. So staff recommends denial of the request for a fuel station at 1511, 1515, and 1521 North Cherokee Road.
Any questions of Ashley at this time? No. Tip?
Yes, sir. I want to add one thing is we spoke to the client and he said that his operating hours for the proposed gas station will be from 5 to 9, so it won't be a 24 hours impact. If that's the main item I want to add to this hearing.
Nothing else?
Do you have any questions?
Any questions for the applicant? There's 9 minutes and 35 seconds rebuttal. We'll open the public hearing to those that speak in favor. Ms. Gray?
No, I'll go without it. Again, for the record, I'm Andrea Gray. I am representing Mr. Patel in his request for a special use permit, and as you mentioned before, since the variance was not approved, I guess this is just an exercise for the record. But this location is a great location for a gas station. It's on Highway 11 en route to the biggest industrial center or job center for our communities. Currently, by GDOT's records, there's 11,000 cars that pass by this location today. Now, 3 or 4 years from now, when Rivian's up and running, there's another 7,500 people potentially coming from this direction to work in Stanton Springs. So there's a significant amount of traffic that could be attracted to this gas station, and it would help alleviate traffic turning down into Social Circle, going through your downtown to go to the Chevron there. So again, different client bases, but it would help traffic as well. Additionally, my client has made efforts to mitigate any potential impacts to the adjoining property owner. As Tip mentioned, there's a 40-foot buffer with 6-foot trees proposed. Also screening along Highway 11 to make it more attractive, to shelter some of the parking areas per your ordinance requirements. And again, limited operating hours. It is not a 24-hour operation, 5 a.m. to 9 p.m. Additionally, the comp plan does contemplate, and again, it's vague and doesn't address gas stations directly, but it does contemplate retail, which we will have 2 retail sites. It also contemplates a grocery store, which what is a convenience store if not essentially a grocery store? So I think we fit squarely within the comp plan as well. So again, it's a great use for the site. We've mitigated impacts to the greatest of our ability to do so. And we would ask that special use permit be granted by City Council since we're not getting a recommendation on the variance at this meeting. With that, I'd be happy to answer any of your questions that you may have.
That's it, thank you. Mr. Patel, you had signed up to speak in favor of this, which, okay. At this time, we'll hear from those who oppose this request for a special use permit. Ms. Regina Davidson.
said everything that I was gonna say. I'm Gina Davidson, Andrea Reeves, mother. She and I are co-owners of the property next door to the site that we're discussing tonight. The community development staff has consistently recommended to the planning commission that the special use permit and variance for a fuel station at 1511, 1515, and 1521 North Cherokee Road be denied. We have attended all meetings of the planning commission and mayor and council regarding the special permit request, have presented very real and serious issues with the fuel station at this site, and believe a fuel station is an inappropriate use of the property which borders our 1501 North Cherokee Road property. This commission indeed voted on October 24th to recommend to the mayor and council to deny the special use permit. When presented to the mayor and council, the special use permit recommendation was sent back to this committee to also make a recommendation on a variance request dealing with the UDC requested distance from closest existing station, fuel station, to proposed new fuel station. Recommending approval of a variance and potentially reversing the original recommendation to deny the special use permit request would certainly open up the possibility for more fuel stations to be developed closer to each other across the currently required to each other than the currently required 2,500 feet, and in other inappropriate locations. Our concerns pointed out at all previous meetings on this issue still exist. We believe a fuel station adjacent to our property would diminish quality of life and present health and safety issues. Examples are loud noises, sometimes into the late night with watering, intense night lighting, toxic fumes, potential late night operation, potential crime, potential spills, potential explosions, accidents from increased traffic, litter and trespassing onto our property. Other concerns are unknown businesses to occupy the end spaces of the proposed development, inadequate water management to prevent flooding to our downhill adjacent property, and devaluation of our property as a residence. The UDC, and this is a quote from the UDC. The UDC is adopted for the purpose of promoting the public health, safety, and general welfare of the residents, property owners, and visitors to the city of Silver City. And I've cited where this can be found if you want to check it. I beseech you, under the authority vested in the city of Social Circle by the state of Georgia, including the Georgia Constitution, zoning procedures law, and the city charter, to recommend denial of the variance, which we've already discussed, and denial of the special use permit a second time for the fuel station at the above-mentioned location. And I thank you very much.
At this time, Andrea Reeves.
Andrea Reeves. And I just wanted to take a second and say that I'm a personal trainer and a life coach, and I'm pretty well educated and have a pretty strong knowledge and background with macronutrition and eating healthy. And gas stations and convenience stores are what's called swamp foods, which are very, very high in calories and very, very low in nutrition to zero nutrition, very high in fat and sugar and carbohydrates. I just want to start off with that, and then I want to go into there's scientific evidence showing that those spending extended periods of time near a gas station pose a health threat. There have been studies documenting the adverse effects of gas station emissions on health that are summarized in the CEDS webpage. The California ARB handbook shows that adverse effects extend out at least 500 feet and affect sensitive land uses such as daycare, parks, homes, schools, places of gatherings, etc. The Montgomery County MD of Maryland and other jurisdictions across the U.S. have adopted codes that few gas stations be located 500 feet or more from the nearest home. And that's quoting the Montgomery County Code, section 3513C. Benzene is the gasoline constituent that is most harmful to human health and include nausea, cancer, anemia, increased susceptibility to infections, headaches, migraines, tuberculosis, and leukemia, to name a few. According to the World Health Organization guidelines for indoor air quality, there is no safe level for benzene. A 2001 study noted that ambient benzene levels of 1.9 parts per billion in houses and places of work up to 328 feet from a service station. Then in 2019, a study of U.S. gas stations found that benzene emissions from underground storage tanks vents were sufficiently high to constitute a health concern at a distance of up to 524 feet. So please, I ask you consider the health and safety of my husband's health, my health, the health of other people that live right in that area. Miss Billy across the street, she's 92. My place of business, Force Fitness. And the last thing I want to cover is, again, I can't stress it enough, the possibility of crime. Yes, somebody might burglarize. You can have that security lighting is what we're talking about. You need the security lighting to prevent crime. But it's going to be attacking my well-being and health and everything, and sleep quality. And gas station convenience stores holdups account for about 7% of all robberies in the nation. And it goes up with check cashing locations, smoke shops, and alcohol sales, which might be adjacent. I fear this will bring nothing but problems and trouble to my adjacent property where I live, not to mention the night lighting, like I previously said, and obnoxious noises all day and night throughout the weekend. And I feel from my God-given right for good health, my well-being, and my safety as a resident of Social Circle. Thank you.
There's no other speakers. Tip, there's 9 minutes and 35 seconds.
To address this, Ms. Davidson, again, we want to reiterate that other gas stations do not be built across from along this intersections because of the watersheds requirement. So as far as the trespassing, we have proposed planted buffer, and privacy fence. And so I don't know what else we could do. We will provide that, but that was the neighbor's concern, and we're willing to cooperate and to make that a non-issue. As far as the tanks in the ground, my client will have to follow EPD regulations for those tanks. I believe EPD, whatever the EPD requires, that would have to be complied by my client. I believe EPD knows what they're doing. As far as the entrance, we'll have to follow Georgia DOT guidelines, like Ms. Ashley said. I can't just arbitrarily say they're design whatever, but I have to follow Georgia DOT guidelines. So whatever, if they want a decel lane, they want a left turn lane, that's what we have to give. If they don't allow it, then they might allow it right in, right out, but we'll have to comply with Georgia DOT. And the neighbors stage will comply with Georgia Stormwater Manual, and we will, and the city have outside consultant to review and to check our work and make sure that we comply with those regulations. So we have to follow those regulations, otherwise the city won't approve our construction plans. And then Ms. Reed said that, you know, she's fearful of the noise, and she chooses to live on Highway 11. It's her choice. It's her choice to live on the highway. So you got to expect that. And the current zoning map or the future land use map indicated that whole strip will be commercial, including her property. And so when she buys the property, she acknowledged that that's what's going to be in, that's what she will be living next to in the future. So, and the businesses that are already there with Fred's and the other businesses that are right up the street. And the last thing that I want to bring your attention to is this is America. If we choose to eat healthy, then we have the right to do that. We have the freedom to do that. And so I'm not here to say that we can't do a certain thing, but I ask that ask the same respect for my client who wants to have a business in Social Circle. And so I ask that you don't take that away from me, take that freedom away from me. Thank you.
I suppose there's no questions of the applicant. Sorry, Tip, I should have asked that while you were still there. There's no questions. Thank you. No, you did fine. We'll close the public hearing here at deliberation. I can certainly understand the plight of the applicant, and I think if it wasn't for the distance between the proposed location and the existing gas station, I think the request for a special use permit would have a lot of merit, but that's just my opinion.
Agreed.
Any thoughts, discussions? And as Ashley pointed out, special use permit, and as the special use permit can't be approved without the variance, and we obviously made the recommendation to deny the variance. I don't want to put a motion in somebody's mouth, but it would send really mixed signals if we sent a motion to approve a special use permit to the mayor and council after we made a motion to recommend or send a recommendation for denial of the variance.
Do we still have to have a motion?
Yes, we did, because it is an item that was applied for. I need to have a formal motion, a second, a vote for a recommendation to send to mayor and council. So, Chair will entertain a motion if there's no other discussion.
A motion to deny.
Mr. Mullins made a motion to deny the special use permit for a fueling station. Is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Gator seconded. Is there any other discussion to be had? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to recommend to deny the special use permit, the second, please signify by raising your hand. All right, that is unanimous. Okay. And again, Mr. Patel, this is just a recommending body. Mayor and council makes their own decisions, and they'll hear your case at their advertised public hearing. Here's the tough part. Do you stay or go? We have other business items. You're not going to hurt our feelings if you guys decide to get up and go and have dinner somewhere. Or you can stay and watch the wheels of government work if you like. Moving on to the second public hearing item. Public hearing item C is a Connor Springs subdivision at 353 Spring Street. They are requesting changes of conditions. So a couple years ago, this property came before us for a rezoning. Staff and planning commission at the time worked diligently to come up with a laundry list of conditions that would be appropriate to the property to provide us with a quality built environment when it got constructed. And now that construction plans have been approved, you all have maybe driven out there and saw that construction is underway. They've got land disturbance, earth being moved. We have a request to amend some of those conditions. Ashley, I'll let you introduce the item.
Yeah, so this property, as the chairman said, was rezoned to residential medium density in August 2021 under different ownership. And like the chairman said, there were 12 zoning conditions that were approved. The applicant has requested 3 changes to the 12 conditions placed on this property when it was rezoned. So, and I'll be talking for a second, so please bear with me. If I start seeing glassy eyes, I'm gonna have to snap my fingers. The first request is to condition 3 subsections E and P, and those sections read as follows. So E says, all homes shall have at least 1 12-inch house and foundation offsets in the front. And condition P says, the side and rear elevations of the homes to contain a brick or stone water table matching the front elevation masonry material. The water table shall be established from finish lot grade to the bottom of the first floor windows, or at least 30 inches in height, whichever is lower. Instead, the applicant has provided several proposed farmhouse-style elevations and the house plans as an alternative to demonstrate the style of housing they would like to build within the subdivision. They've also got a presentation, so once we get to the applicant's portion of the presentation, then I think they're gonna go over some of the house plans. There were some included in the application, but I don't think they could fit everything in just because of data constraints on our application. The second condition the applicant is requesting a change to is condition number 4, which reads as follows. The amenities to include a swimming pool and at least 2 tennis courts. Amenity must be completed prior to the recording of phase 2 of the final plat, or recording of the phase 2 final plat, sorry. The applicant has requested that the developer installs a splash pad instead of a pool for reasons listed within their application. Administratively, the city approved a minor condition change to allow for pickleball courts instead of tennis courts. They're roughly the same size and shape and use. It's a little bit slower tennis, but that was a minor enough change that we felt that administratively we could approve that. And then the third condition the applicant is requesting a change to is condition 5, which reads as follows. Stormwater pond on the north side of the stream as shown on zoning site plan, and there's some more language in there, but the gist of it is they must have an operating fountain in that stormwater pond on the north side of the stream. The applicant states that the ponds will only retain water seasonally, so the fountain will not function properly under these conditions. It would basically get filled with mud and silt, and in the future it could result in people turning off the fountain or it breaking down to where it doesn't work properly, so rendering the condition kind of not followed. And then we go into kind of some of the staff analysis. The code requires that any change in condition be treated like a map amendment or zoning, a rezone basically. So a lot of the questions that go along with a rezone don't necessarily apply to a change in conditions. There are some, like if it's compatible with like uses around the area, and it appears to be that they are, but a splash pad isn't something that we typically, I don't think we have one inside the city limits or nearby. So that was one thing that I did point out, that would be a uniquely Connor Springs thing if we had a splash pad in Connor Springs. So staff recommends denial of the change in conditions to condition 3 subsections E and P. Should the planning commission choose to recommend the approval, should the planning commission choose to recommend approval of the change in conditions to 3 subsections E and P, staff recommends that the applicant shall be limited to the house plans presented. Staff recommends denial of the change in conditions to the condition 4, which is the splash pad over the swimming pool. Staff recommends denial of the change in conditions to condition 5. Should the planning commission choose to recommend approval of the change in conditions to condition, oh, I'm sorry, there's a typo in the staff report. To condition 5, staff recommends that the applicant shall have a fountain in the other pond shown on the preliminary plat, or you guys could choose to have no fountain at all, and just approve that condition. And also, staff would recommend kind of breaking down and separating these requested changes out into separate motions, in case you guys want to approve some and not approve others.
Are there any questions of Ashley about this? This was kind of a lot wrapped into
One, yeah.
a small amount of
There's a lot
time.
going on there.
Anybody have questions at this time of her? Of course you know I do, sorry, Ashley.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at Exhibit A, the conditions of Connor Springs. I don't know if this is, I got an incorrect one, but I'm looking at condition 3E is what's being requested, 50%. The 3E that I show is all homes shall have at least one 12-inch house and foundation offset in the front. Should this be 3G, which is the 50% homes shall have a front facade with a minimum of 50% brick or stone?
It should be G. Okay, that is a typo on my part. I apologize.
I'm gonna blame Liberty as well.
Yes, feel free to.
Was it in the application as E instead of G?
Yeah.
Okay.
If you look at our letter,
It's quite a lot.
clarify that.
It's quite a
Yeah.
lot to choose from, so.
That's my fault.
So just, I'm glad I'm not
Thank you
seeing
for
things,
pointing that out.
I'm glad I'm
Yeah.
not seeing things incorrectly.
And we will
So-
get that amended for the mayor and council too.
And here's, I guess, can be both good and bad of the applicant. They've requested a change of conditions. When they make a request to change something, that opens Pandora's box. There can be additional conditions placed on it, or clarification. So, that's something to keep in mind, that.
We can
As we go
condition
through
the
this.
change in
Yeah,
conditions.
So, the request that I'm glad I clarified this, 50% homes shall have a front facade with a minimum of 50% brick or stone. This 50% shall be measured as a percentage of the actual covered wall space and will exclude doors and windows. Subsection to it is at least 50% of these homes shall have a minimum of 50% facade on 3 sides of the home front and both sides. So doing the math, they have a maximum of 111 lots. That's 56 houses contain 50% of their front facade to be brick or stone. Of that 56, 27 of those have to have 50% brick or stone on the sides as well. So just thinking the math as we go along. Ashley, is there anything you'd
Yeah,
like to add?
so, that makes a lot more sense. I don't know why I didn't catch that. I apologize. My brain is fried. But so to kind of on the fly amend my staff report, what the applicant is proposing is instead of brick or stone, doing cementous siding with, I believe board batten and some hardy plank, siding. So it wouldn't be like vinyl siding or anything like that, but it would be cementous. It just wouldn't be brick or stone. You guys don't clarify stucco in here.
Oh.
Yeah, so it just wouldn't be brick or stone.
And if that were to change, it would also impact condition 3P, which states the side and rear elevations of home to contain a brick or stone water table matching the front elevation masonry material. The water table shall be established from the finished grade of the bottom of the first to the bottom of the first floor window, or 30 inches in height, whichever is lower.
So in layman's terms, if you have stone on the front of your house, and correct me if I'm wrong, Scott, but if you have stone on the front of your house, water table also has to be stone.
That's correct.
So it has to be stone for at least a
30
little over
inches.
2 feet or up to the bottom window, whichever one is lower. So if your bottom window is lower than 2 feet, you gotta go stone all the way up. If you do brick on the front, your water table has to be brick at least 30 inches or the bottom of your window. So that's just so you guys can visualize it in your mind, because I know that's very wordy and it can get to be a lot if you're not used to looking at words like that.
So just keep that in mind, that a change as requested will also impact that one.
Right, so that's why they asked for G, not E, and P, because they affect one another.
At this time, thank you actually for
Yeah,
clarifying that, going through that. We'll open up the public hearing. Applicant?
Okay, let's see if this will work.
Director and Commissioners, thank you for your time tonight. And my name is Val Akins. I'm the Land Acquisition Manager for Liberty Communities. Our corporate office is at 1215 Eagles Lane Parkway in Stockbridge. We build out in this area quite a bit, and we're happy and excited about being in Social Circle. And thank you for considering our variance. I'd like to start by saying that out of all the conditions, we have even modified our homes to meet the garage standards that you have and other things, and the vent pipes. And so we're meeting all the conditions except for these ones that we're bringing to you this evening. And thank you for pointing out could be a typo on our part for writing the letter. Throw Ashley under the bus completely. So, the reason is we have, as part of our marketing, we put up a sign and draw VIP. And part of that VIP is to see what the community is asking for. And we've had a large response in kind of the farmhouse look. So it's not just your traditional brick facades. And you see it's popular around here. I've driven around and looked at other neighborhoods, and you see a lot of farmhouse style homes with brick water tables and around the front, some only on the front and some on the sides as well. So what because of that, the work that our marketing department has done and the success we've seen in other neighborhoods where we've built our farmhouse product, we're just asking for a slight change in the condition where it's not a full 50% on the front and then 50% on the side for the 27 homes that would be required. But to be able to we have a couple elevations in our farmhouse, and if you want to pull up that presentation, I can show those as we get there. So we have multiple elevations in our farmhouse where that brick is moved around. Some of them may constitute 50%, but some of them have only a brick water table that would go around the front and the sides, and so it would be more like a 30 or 25%, brick front. And then the rest of the material would be cementous hardy board, which also has very similar lifespan and high quality. So I want to emphasize, we're not trying to change the quality of the neighborhood at all. It's really more about taste of the buyer and what's popular in the market. With our VIP list, we've gotten multiple hundreds of VIPs, and it just seems to be a very popular request.
I'm so sorry, Mr. Akins.
Is it not coming up?
It says the file's corrupt.
Oh, I
Yeah.
thought you just had it up.
I thought I did too, but it's saying that it doesn't.
Is there any way to solve that problem? We have a limitation on time.
I know.
Could I do this? You all have a copy of it?
They have a copy.
Could I have your copy?
Yeah.
And then I can
You
kind
have my
of go
copy.
through it that way? I mean, I don't know, this doesn't really
This is
do it
the
justice.
PowerPoint of 1990, right?
That's right, here we go. But it doesn't really, I feel like having these pictures up would be a lot
I
better.
apologize.
It's okay though, we can operate on the fly. So you all can see the style of the homes. It has, not only does it have a brick water table and some brick features, it also has corbels and gables, and the porches that have columns will have cedar in those, okay? So I just want to emphasize, I don't feel like we're diminishing the quality of the house at all that you requested in your conditions, and I felt like the conditions were to maintain quality construction. And so as you go through there, you can see that our houses also meet all the square footage requirements, although we didn't list square footages, but I want you to know that we did make sure that every house plan we put in here meets your square footage requirements. And the houses also have many of them have nice front porches, also have rear covered patios where People can sit and enjoy their backyards. And then they'll have very nice upgraded features on the inside as far as separate tub and shower. We use all hard surface tops in our houses. Most of that is granite. We have special LED mirrors in the bathrooms. And also, we offer a gourmet kitchen package in the kitchen that has double oven and special gourmet cooktops and things like that. So these are very high-quality homes. And our intent is not to change that in any way, shape, or form, but simply to offer a different elevation or a different facade, which is what we would call our farmhouse. And at first, we only provided you some samples of these homes, but actually recommended that we put in every potential house plan that we would build, so we provided those. In addition, those aren't all color, but they do give you all the different elevations that could be built in the neighborhood. And at this point, I'll pause and ask any questions.
Why don't we, you've got 4 minutes, 12 seconds remaining. Go
Can we
ahead.
talk about the other items?
Yes, talk about the other items. If we have questions, we can revisit those.
Okay, I have a modified version.
Let's talk about the pond first, okay? The northern pond, and I don't have a picture, a slide that shows where it's located, but the northern pond on the plan is not a wet pond, so it's gonna dry up seasonally. And it's simply just impossible to have a fountain in it. And so we would have to, if we're gonna do a fountain, we'd have to move it to the other pond location. Our concern is, in watching that pond, we've had a lot of rain lately, so there's water in there. But this is not a water feature for the neighborhood, so this is not like a goldfish pond or a fishing pond or a water feature. These are simply for water runoff and detention and retention. And one thing we look at when we're looking at a neighborhood is we want long-term sustainability for the HOA. And we don't want something that's gonna, and this is a fountain, so it's not a huge expense, but we feel like it's gonna create a problem where they're always gonna be fixing it. And so it's just something we're speaking to from our experiences of being developers and home builders, that you want a feature that's gonna look nice and attain the objective, and I'm sure that y'all were looking for when you put this in there, that's something that'd be beautiful and pleasant to look at in the neighborhood. And this could be quite the opposite, just because these ponds are not meant for that feature, that's all. So we'd like you to consider that variance for that, the variance for that reason. And then third, with the splash pad, this is probably, I don't want to influence your decision-making in any way. And Director, how much time do I have?
2 minutes, 20 seconds.
Thank you. However, again, this is mainly based upon cost for the HOA. If you drive around your city, I'll just keep this very brief, and you look at some of the other neighborhoods that have pools, it's common, and I've driven through your city multiple times and looked at these neighborhoods, for the opening season for some of the pools to be green and not open yet, and to be delayed in their opening. You come back later on, they eventually get open, maybe it's June or July, but they eventually get open. And usually that's based on a cost factor for the HOA. They just don't have it in their budget to maintain the pool. If this was a neighborhood of 200 or 300 homes, I would say, yeah, there's plenty of income to support. This is a neighborhood of, our limit is 111, we're actually only having 106 homes built in there. And so that's a borderline number. And so your cost of operation for a pool is more expensive than a splash pad. And we're seeing these as a more popular feature in neighborhoods all over. You got towns like Fayetteville and Peachtree City, and they put them at the municipal parks and things like that, and you're seeing them come around. The other thing about a splash pad is you don't have a pool of water that's sitting there. It has to be regulated in the off season. And if for some reason the HOA 15, 20 years from now had some financial struggles, it could be used as something else, so you don't have to fill it in, you know? It does conserve water, and it also has a lower long-term maintenance cost. There's less risk, the liability insurance is a little bit less, it's still required, okay? So those things are definitely things to consider. Our main motivation is the long-term sustainability for the HOA, and they are a very popular feature right now. If it's something that the city it's like it's too big a change for us, and we understand, but we just want you to consider it.
Sure. Got 10 seconds rebuttal. Did a good job. Hang tight, 'cause there might be some questions. Members, y'all have any questions?
I do have one that may or may not relate to any of this. Is there, and you were talking about how people want things to look nice. Is there signage planned for the entrance to this subdivision?
Yeah, I wish
And
I
if
would have had it with me. We have a very nice, and they've seen it and approved it, and I'm happy to, have you seen it?
We've seen it, but we haven't gotten the permit yet.
Well, yeah, you'll want to
Yeah,
approve it
yeah,
until you
yeah.
get the permit.
Yeah.
As a
But we
matter of
have seen
fact,
it, yeah.
we had on the sign a little roof feature that we took off because it went 5 inches above your ordinance, and so we lowered it just to be a flat stone. But it's very attractive.
Is it lighted?
It's lighted, yes.
It will be lighted.
Isn't it? Yeah, it'll be lit from the ground
It's
up.
backlit.
Right, it would be backlit.
And then it could, yeah.
Fine, okay.
I do have some question about the pool versus splash pad.
Okay.
And I completely understand the finances of operating a pool. Do you think a splash pad is a little bit age limiting? I mean, no offense, but I don't see any of us gonna go jump and play in a splash pad. I mean, you may, but
No.
I think I'd, you
Not
know,
a no.
if I'm a resident of your community, I think that, you know, if I'm paying 200 plus a year in HOA fees, I think a pool would be something that I would use more than a splash pad. Some adults may use them, I don't know.
I do not have statistics that,
I've always seen
um,
kids in them.
Hey,
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do not have statistics that would counter that, okay? And I have grandkids, they're probably the best thing in my life, so, you know. And they love splash pads, but I'm sure when they get to be 16 and 17, that may change. So, if you want to pass this around, that's the entrance.
Okay.
And then if they'll move around on this, it shows some of the landscape.
Any thoughts,
Yeah, and the zoo too.
concerns on these requests? So we've got 3 requests for this one property.
Any more
One to-
questions for the applicant?
I don't think I have any questions.
I don't either.
It's brick.
Yeah.
And, because the sign is brick, right?
Yes,
That
brick
part's-
base.
It'll be
that's
painted brick.
base.
If
Painted
you
brick.
approve our farmhouse elevations, it would be very similar to that. But it will be brick, and it will be complementary to the elevations within the subdivision.
Okay.
You're welcome to have a seat. If we have questions, you don't have to jump back up to the podium.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, we've got somebody.
We
Sorry, I didn't have a bigger screen for you.
We ordered DoorDash, don't worry.
Appreciate it. As long as you
So-
included me, that's okay.
You got it. So we've got 3 requests for this one application.
Okay.
And I think, look, each request deserves its own merit. I'd like to talk about what I think would be kind of the more benign request and go to the others. Yeah.
Do we have anybody to speak for or against?
Thank you for saying it.
Just want
No.
to make sure we get it by the book.
Yep, thank you. So, we do not have anyone, continue the public hearing, we don't have anyone signed up to speak for or against, so at this time, we'll close the public hearing. Thank you, Ashley, for catching that. So, what I'd like to do is address each item on its own merit, and looking at those that are kind of the more benign, let's take the fountain. Because when we worked on these conditions of zoning with the owner, and it was done at a meeting, and it was tabled, and we come back, and so that it was a lot of give and take with the owner of the property. and coming up with these conditions, and the purpose of these conditions is so we would have a quality built environment. Because once it's there, it's not easy to change, right? And the idea is we want to, at the time, we wanted to still stick with the character of the homes that were being built and had been built in Social Circle. So that's what gave us a lot of these conditions, and a lot of these conditions are now reflected within the UDC as standards for development. But let's look at the fountain. I don't know where that condition came from. I'm blaming the mayor on that one. I don't know. But as far as
I don't remember talking about a
as far as
fountain
the
ever.
fountain, so I started looking at that, and I had some things written down. You know, what's the elevation of the pond, the detention pond? And the ponds are there for not for aesthetics, they're there for water quality and detention. They're not retention ponds. Retention ponds retain water. That would be like a pond you go fishing in. A detention pond is there to detain the water after the first so many inches of rain, runs off the roads, runs off your lots, and runs off your rooftops, and that water is to be detained in those ponds for flood control. And then you have extended wet detention where you got a little bit of pool of water under the bottom, maybe 2 foot, and that's for water quality purposes. Most pond, I don't know how these ponds were designed. I didn't look at the construction plans, but I'm guessing these are probably extended dry detention, or they may have some wet detention for water quality. It's not gonna have enough water in there really for a pump to pump and create a fountain of any kind. I do agree with the applicant that my opinion, that this will be more of a maintenance issue, and that fountain will get clogged with leaves, algae, grass, mud. But I'm not sure that carries a lot of weight towards the purpose and intent of these conditions to have a quality built environment. In my opinion, I don't have strong feeling whatsoever if the condition stays or goes. So that's just where I'm coming from on that.
Well, I mean, I feel like, I, like you, don't recall where the fountain came from, but I think fountains can start to look pretty dated pretty quickly. You know, if they're not, I don't want to say maintained, but, you know, if it's not a certain size and all of that, so I mean, I don't have a problem with it going.
Other office, anything?
I agree, I don't have a problem with it.
Well, I'll entertain a motion for the change condition and considering the fountain for Connor Springs.
That would be condition number 5 for motion's sake.
I'll make a motion to remove the fountain from Stormwater.
Okay, we have a motion to remove the condition that a fountain be part of Connor Springs, and I'm sorry, I've got paper everywhere.
I'll second that
So
one.
we have a second to remove the condition of zoning for Connor Springs to have a fountain in the detention ponds.
And Valerie, you were saying?
No other, any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, signify by raising your hand. Thank you, Mayor. So the next item, the swimming pool. Again, I let my thoughts be known. I think the change of a pool to a splash pad is a little limiting on age. I mean, Sonora, would you go and play in a splash pad?
I'd say have both of them if it's enough space.
You're certainly welcome to do both.
Is it gonna be a kid-friendly community?
There's a
Well,
playground.
Looking at
planned.
the house sizes, I imagine that there will be families that have children. And the idea of the amenity is to provide that to the residents of that community.
I know it's kind of hard to see, but here's the
Yeah.
proposed amenity. So here's your swimming pool and your pool house here, and then there is a playground noted here, and this is in y'all's application too, that you might be able to see a little bit better. And then here's your pickleball courts over here. So there's kind of like this play area kind of in the middle of the subdivision. So And then with the splash pad, it would look more like this, so you'd have kind of, pergolas or arbors over some sunbathing areas, and then just an area to splash water on yourself, or if you're like running through the sprinkler, basically, just in a more luxurious kind of way.
I would point out, if that's okay, that the clubhouse remains. It's just, all the features remain. The only difference would be, instead of a pool, it would be a splash pad. Still seating, et cetera.
Yeah. I mean,
And some some example pictures of what that would look like are right
Yeah.
here.
I don't know.
Into a much more extended season, the splash pad stays
Yeah.
there much longer
Yeah,
than the pool, just a couple months out of the year.
yeah. I mean, the zoo has big splash pad. I mean, so I do think age is a limiting factor there, and I also feel like a pool is a little more, I feel like if you have a splash pad there, that maybe, you know, I don't wanna say invite vandalism, but, you know, pool, you're gonna lock up and close down at night and keep people from being in there. Splash pad, maybe not so much, and, you know, I think teenagers may or may not use that as a hangout area. And adults aren't, you know, if adults get busy, they're not gonna wanna take their kids there and do stuff. They're gonna be like, oh, you know, I'm not gonna go. It's a lot of unsupervised. I don't know. I like if I was living there, I'd want a pool.
I would do pool too, especially being in HOA.
I think when people are looking at houses, if they're looking at two identical houses and they are a couple with either, you know, no small children that would enjoy a splash pad or don't have children at all, faced with the two, they're gonna go with the neighborhood that has the pool.
Any other comments?
Well, you think the city will put a splash pad somewhere?
I'm so glad you asked that. So we're actually doing, my little plug here, we're
Ashley was
in the
waiting for
process
that.
of doing a parks and facilities master plan that actually started some public engagement back at Friendship Festival. And I'm glad this is going on the record, but we're gonna begin doing more public engagement at different events and maybe some focused meetings on that. So if you think the city needs a splash pad, please come to all the public engagement, and who knows, it could be in our future parks plan, so.
If the city would want a splash pad, districts, they would.
That would be a good idea, to be honest. Because we have a lot of
Come to
kids.
public engagement,
Okay,
these
so
public
let's
processes.
Y'all
go
stop
back.
derailing that.
Okay,
Back to the issue I
Back-
had.
okay, yeah, let's go back to this.
Thank you for that little commercial break.
You're welcome. Light mood.
Yeah.
So, any other thoughts or discussion about the text of the proposed condition removal of the swimming pool in exchange for a splash pad? If there's no other discussion, Chair will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we retain the condition that there be a pool.
Okay. All right, so we have a motion, Valerie, that the pool shall remain a condition of zoning, and that was seconded by, Ms. Brown did, okay. All those, any other discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that, please raise your hand. Okay. Now the one that
Now
I
the big
think,
one.
in order of importance, this is probably the most important, is the request to eliminate the condition of 50% of the home shall have a front facade with a minimum of 50% brick or stone, so on and so forth. Looking at this, looking at their plan samples, looking at other homes being built in the area and throughout metro Atlanta, the look of the homes being proposed is a pretty popular look, with the board and bat siding, with the siding panels, with the faux rafter tails and the finials. I'm not sure that's the farmhouse that I know what a farmhouse looks like, but that is a very popular house style with very little masonry in the terms of stone or brick. I have seen a few with these house styles, the front facades that do contain a majority brick or stone. But I think some of this also could contribute to being a cost savings. The cost of construction for homes has increased since we had this rezoning, and placed these conditions on the property. Right now, the IBC, International Building Code, standard for a single-family home with this type of construction is $167 a square foot. That's just kind of your basic bare minimum starting point, and it only goes up from there. And I certainly don't want to put words in the applicant's mouth, but here in his presentation, they're putting some better than builder grade materials on the inside, potentially as a way to lure those buyers who may be on the fence. So I struggle with this because I really pushed for that masonry, that brick and stone. And Ashley's laughing at me because she wasn't here, but she probably saw that and says, I know where that came from. And I think to have some flexibility, you know, again, this is where I struggle, because I see what the cost of construction is. I see this more as a cost savings measure, which is a good thing. And the idea behind the 50% of the homes, in this case, sorry, it is 106 lots versus 111, so 53 homes would have to have that 50% brick. You know, if that's something that this body decided that, you know, they were comfortable with, then I would go along with it, reducing that. I do think it's imperative because it does give a specific look to a house to maintain that brick or stone water table at least on 3 sides, and maybe as a compromise for the 50% of your front facade, you have a brick water table on all 4 sides. We have another community that we place conditions on, and that was one of the conditions, is all sides have that brick or stone water table so that the back area doesn't get left out. And as stated earlier, the applicant did request change of conditions. We do have the authority to clarify, add, remove, so on and so forth. But I say that because if that's something that you guys are thinking that, okay, instead of, just pick this house, for example, the house on the right, you have the double gables on the right-hand side above the 2 garage doors. In order for that to meet that 50% brick or stone, the far left gable, all the way up to the peak of the roof, and probably that gable over the left-hand garage would be brick or stone. Picture on the right.
Oh.
That's what I was looking at, but yeah, you can apply it to the picture on the left as well. But that's what it would, take, is to probably meet that requirement.
And I believe there is a water table on this one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So would every house still have to have a water table? And
That's
not-
in the code now.
Yeah, it still has to have that,
Mhm.
every house.
But I think the code only requires 18 inches, if I remember correctly.
And-
I'd have to go back and look, but
And when these were being developed,
we did have the UDC in place either.
the idea about the variable height is, we didn't know some of these lots were gonna be basement lots. Well, if you've got a basement lot and you have an side elevation of a house that may drop down 30 or 40 feet from the road grade, you don't wanna brick all the way up to that bottom window way up 8, 10 foot high, that has an odd look. The idea is you keep it consistent down, 30 inches or less, 26 inches, all the way around. And that was the idea about the variable height of the water table, because we didn't have at that time any house plans. This was just conceptualized based on a rezoning. But as far as a reduction, staff has an alternative recommendation. I'm open for any ideas, any discussion.
I mean, I know that's super popular right now.
I mean, you can go up and down Knox Chapel and see this house about
Uh-huh.
16 times.
Yeah.
I mean, not exactly this house, but like
It's
something that
similar.
Right,
looks
it's
like
built
it,
just the
yeah.
same way,
Yeah.
right? There's that big
That-
white one on the
that
corner of
neo
Ross Road.
farmhouse
That's
style,
right.
Not true,
It is
but-
that one, the left
Well, yeah, it's it's longer and
Mhm.
lower, but it's
Yeah.
basically the same.
one sure is.
My,
Can I make one clarification as far as our elevations?
Sure.
In this farmhouse look, we're getting a little bit more into the details, but I think it's important because it could answer some questions. Some of them will have the water table. Some of them, depending on if it's what we call a 2B or a 3B elevation, will have almost 50% brick. Like you look at this one, the front porch is all brick.
This right here.
And then some of them that have the gables go up front, one of those gables will be brick. And if the client chooses that to the 3B or whatever elevation it has that, then they would get that. So in the current UDO references, it's on page, I don't know the reference number, but it's on around page 24, 25 of your design standards. Only requires a 50%, okay? On a certain number of your homes, okay? So I think we'd be very close to that, depending on what elevation the buyer chose. And again, we're not trying to minimize quality. You're very wise in saying construction costs have gone up, and we do want to be able to provide the option to have a broader home buyer, because as you get up into the 400s, you limit the buyers that can come into your neighborhood. We'd like to have some houses that stay below 400, so that we don't limit that buyer base.
I can't help but ask this question. It's not relevant to what we're at here to consider, but you've stated multiple times the buyer. This is a fee simple community and not a build-to-rent community.
100%, absolutely.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I mean, that doesn't affect my opinion or thoughts on the matter. I know.
Very good question in today's environment.
Absolutely.
Honest question.
And in some places, a build-to-rent is the best thing, because then you have one company managing all the properties, and it doesn't become a code enforcement nightmare in a lot of places. But
Yeah, but in this location, in this area, social circle, probably not the best.
okay.
so I have a question for you. Do we have conditions in place for this neighborhood? I think we do, about if the buyer chooses their home plan, right? What's to say that everybody on one of those streets isn't gonna choose the same plan and have it look the same?
There's conditions.
No,
in
there's
there.
conditions.
Yeah, it is,
3D.
yeah, this
Okay.
is like, you guys did a really, really good job on conditioning it
I
to
thought
make
we
sure
did.
that every other lot can't even have the same house plan. I
Yeah,
think
it's gotta
like-
be two in any direction.
Yeah,
I think it's-
yeah, it's gonna be really fun permitting, yeah.
Good times.
And we have internal guidelines also that we will permit that on our internal structure.
Okay.
We will do our very best but.
You have a
If we do,
fail-safe.
then we hope y'all will catch it.
As I alluded to earlier, if it's this board's recommendation or thoughts is to say, yeah, we understand, we now have more concrete evidence of what's proposed versus what we looked at in 2021.
Yeah, 2021.
And want to reduce that to say all homes shall have minimum of water table on all four sides or around all elevations, between 18 and 30 inches, to the bottom of the first floor window, and remove that. I mean, I'll go along with that, but
Hang on, I'm trying to find the city.
So what the chairman is proposing is the removal of condition G, which would require 50%, right, if I'm guessing your intent?
Yep.
The removal of condition G and, the, removal of, which would in turn remove I think, which is the 50,
G.1.
yeah, it would remove G and G subsection and amending condition P to that all the homes shall have a brick water table, or brick or stone water table that is 18 to 30, to the bottom of the window, or 18 to 30 inches, whichever is less, right?
30 inches, whichever it is.
Yeah, well, however you guys want to word that, yeah.
Okay.
30 inches is what it is currently.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. I'm gonna make a motion.
All right. Any?
We're almost there,
Adolphus?
guys.
Okay.
Okay. I'm gonna motion that we remove, condition 3 subsection G and place the condition that all houses on all four sides have a water table, brick or stone, that reaches 30 inches or to the bottom of the windows, whichever is less.
You said all homes, water table on all four sides, right?
All sides,
Okay.
or just all sides.
Mhm.
Some of them might have more than four
Is
sides.
that comfortable for you?
To 30 inches or bottom of
I
windows.
would love to see it not on the back, just because if we do our porch and, but but, you know, I'm not gonna split hairs.
The only question, I guess, would be just for, is to, on your basements, and there are several, obviously, that would extend from the entire depth of the basement, your brick. And that's okay if that's what you intend to do on the back. We've done that in other neighborhoods, solely because of the water table condition. But that would be the extension, and there are on the south side of the creek a number of basements that would be effective.
Okay.
If that's what you guys choose, that's okay.
So if you do three sides water table versus the four sides, that would mean the back of the basement is all hardy plank or cementous hardy board versus brick.
Okay.
I think I would be in favor of the condition as you stated it.
As stated, correct.
That's me, personally.
Well, because the hardy plank will rot,
Yes.
because I'm replacing the back of my house. So,
All right, so we do have a motion.
Yeah.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, is any other discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. Thank you. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. And like I extended other, y'all can stay if you'd like, or y'all can head out. We have one other item on the agenda. It is consideration of amendment to the Unified Development Code to include the mixed-use business park zoning designation. We have a piece of property that's zoned in UBP. It's been zoned that way for a couple of years, but apparently,
I don't think it's only been zoned this way since I've been here, because this is my very first case, if you guys remember.
have you been here a couple of years?
I've only been here for a little over a year.
Well,
Feels like longer.
feels like two.
Time
flies.
Um,
or doesn't.
Yeah,
So,
so
would you like to-
December of 2022, the city rezoned tax parcel 133005, which is in Newton County, to mixed-use business park with several conditions. And I have those conditions for you guys, just as a refresher. Give me 1 second. So the conditions were that the front setback is to be 50 feet, side setbacks were to be 20 feet, maximum building height is 75, and the following uses would be prohibited, which is a campground, kennel, mini warehouse, horse facilities, skating rink for roller or ice, transportation terminals for freight, truck terminal, and any and all residential uses. So those are the conditions that are placed on the property currently under the rezone that we did in 2022.
Would you read those again? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll keep them up.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
there
yeah,
they are.
yeah.
I see 'em.
So with the June 2023 adoption of the Unified Development Code, the mixed-use business park designation was unintentionally excluded from the rewrite, and there wasn't a like zoning designation to, it wasn't like the business designation where everything got smushed up under the business category, like neighborhood commercial and all that. So this would be its kind of own special zoning designation, kind of like a PUD or Stanton Springs Business Park. To address this unintentional error, the city is proposing the text amendment to include the zoning designation and allow for tax parcel 133005 to have applicable code within the Unified Development Code, because right now, there's nothing really that, besides the old code, that it falls under.
It's a non-conforming zoning.
It's an existing non-conforming zoning, and other designation, or other jurisdictions that I've worked in have language in the code about this, yes, this is a zoning designation, but nothing else can rezone to it. This zoning, or this text amendment basically states that a mixed-use business park is a part of a large-scale development of 200 acres or more, and it must be adjacent to, must be adjacent to I-20. It's developed under a single unified entity. It contains a mixture of uses, and it's developed in conformity with a master plan, and it provides adequate infrastructure. The main thing that's changing from the old code is that we're just kind of making sure that the language changed. So it used to be that it had all the uses from GC and I-1. Now it's just business and LI. So that's why I included the permitted use table, so you guys could see all the permitted uses and limited uses within those zoning designations. And then, same for the accessory uses and structure. It's, anything that's allowed in business and LI, so business and light industrial. With the exception of storage, sales and distribution, and those are permitted as accessory uses related to principal uses, not, you can't just store stuff on this property.
Can't be a lay-down yard.
That
Exactly,
was my
yeah.
question, exactly.
So, and then any special uses that would be allowed in business and light industrial, would have to go through the special use process. So if they wanted to put a gas
I was
station
gonna say
here,
the gas station.
yeah, they would have to go through the special use process, for that as well. And then it goes into more, development standards, which is just basically from the old code, but this property has specific conditions as it relates to setbacks and, building height.
And it's the purple,
It is the orange, so.
the orange.
Yeah,
Okay.
so the purple is Stanton Springs Business Park, the orange is the mixed-use business park, and then the green is agricultural. That just hasn't, no one's gotten their hands on rezone yet, or they're
It's
biding their
coming.
time. Yeah, whichever one.
Oh, it's right there where Willow Springs comes out.
Yeah. So staff recommends approval of this text amendment because we're just trying to make sure that they have code to work under, or.
Ashley, can you give me an example of what fabrication and production, I mean, this property's not going to be a biopharmaceutical research facility. It's likely going to be marketed for fabrication, production, industrial type services.
So there's supplemental standards that go along with that. So if you look at fabrication and production, there's like artisan fabrication and production, and then there's a couple other subcategories.
I'm sorry, I don't have the supplemental standards 3.4.3, but what is, can you give kind of an example of what an artisan or limited light?
So artisan would
Fabrication.
be like, artisan is like artwork, so like a painting studio or something like that. Limited would be, uses that process, fabricate, assemble, treat, or package finished parts or products without the use of explosive or petroleum materials. And it does not, limited fabrication and production does not include the assembly of large equipment and machinery, and has very limited external impacts. So that's like clothes, bakery, bottling plants, ice manufacturing, mattress manufacturing. So there's quite a few lists. Newspaper printing would be limited. Concrete mixing facilities where no raw materials or process is also part of limited. General are uses that process, fabricate, assemble, or treat materials for the production of large equipment and machines, as well as fabrication and production uses that because of their scale or method of operation regularly produce odors, dust, noise, vibration,
Okay.
truck stuff.
Data center, I see requires a special use permit in light industrial, so if, that's something that I know is a hot topic. Data centers are heavy users on electricity, not big job producers, but they're a necessary evil because every one of us has this.
We all have a lot of data.
Yeah, but that would require a special use permit.
Correct, so if you look at, this is kind of their, like a high-level master plan for them.
Cannot read that.
The green or kind of yellowish on this screen would be the light industrial area, and then the orangey color would be where they would want their business uses.
But this is not conditioned to the
No,
property.
no, this is just a proposed master plan.
Right.
Which mirrored their master plan that was original
For
to the application. They just updated it to reflect the language that's been adopted. So originally it was I-1 and GC uses, or Tier 1 or Tier 2 uses.
Who is they?
This is the Stanton Grove project, and
They
they brought to our,
they is them.
yeah, they brought to our attention that this was excluded, so we're trying to remedy that with the text amendment.
So you're not the applicants, but Sarah, Frank, welcome. What you got planned for this property?
Again, what we stated before, you know, light industrial to the back, commercial uses, so the pocket that is not colored is currently in Newton County unincorporated, and it's currently zoned. They're highway commercial general, so again, when we went through rezoning, you know, it's to match here, that front kind of pocket is potential commercial, uses, things of that nature, and then again, when we went through rezoning the first time, the back half would be that kind of light industrial. A mix of what you see currently zoned in Stanton Springs today, so.
High paying jobs, that's our job. under the
Like what?
Constitution is to-
I'm sorry.
Like what?
Well, again, like, so what the.
So light
goal was-
industrial covers a whole lot of things.
Yeah, and again, the thought of what the South Park is, looking at like Takeda, again, Meta, Scott referenced the data center, I think it fits in within the use, not saying that they wouldn't have to come get extra approval if it happens, but that also fits within those kind of parks. So it could potentially be, you know, something as what is in the South. What we wanted in, again, when we came through planning commission, you know, back before in December and then to the council was uniformity of what's currently within Stanton Springs today. And again, since this is the last quadrant, the last leg of that, and then offering some commercial opportunity, since again, the county currently has that up front in that pocket, again, to kind of build that uniformity there.
But anything that would require special use would have to come back.
Have any leads?
You know, ever since it's been zoned, yes. Again, I think that's, you know, But again, one of the things that was the concerning is that, again, and we appreciate Ashley, she's been a great help to us, and through this, you know, the concern is that, again, when the unified zoning code was adopted, this was, again, unintentionally, we don't think anything happened there, you know, for it to be unadopted, but again, we're sitting in a place that it's technically unzoned at the moment. So we want to make sure we get back in the code, so it's not just helter-skelter as we are, that we want to make sure it's zoned accurately, so, to do so and get this back established for any potential needs.
And one thing I'd add is, again, your comprehensive plan still shows it as mixed-use business park. It shows it as gateway interchange, but mixed-use business park, or industrial, what are the uses that are allowed in that, so it's consistent with your comprehensive plan.
We had no one signed up to speak for or against, so we'll close the public hearing since this was a staff-initiated request. Questions, concerns, comments?
I mean, I have lots of concerns, lots of them.
Well, and Ashley, thank you for printing the table of permitted uses. It helped in another case, and it helped here.
Yeah, if
Seeing,
you guys want to keep those handy.
yeah, seeing that the types of uses that could establish there, or on any ID or LI or business zoning district, is helpful, so. Chair, entertain a motion. We could have a motion to approve with changes, deny, or table it.
So, question,
Okay.
if we do anything other than approve it, what happens?
Goes to mayor and council with whatever recommendation
Yeah,
you
with
have.
no recommendation.
Yeah.
With no recommendation? And then,
They make a decision.
they make a decision regardless.
Yeah. And truth be known,
It doesn't
even
matter
if
what we say.
the property is zoned mixed-use business park currently, it was zoned mixed-use business park, and the city's zoning ordinance had
Mixed
that
use
zoning
business park.
district. The zoning district is not in our current code. That doesn't mean the property is not zoned, it doesn't mean the zoning goes away. It just means that it references.
Oh, so we're just adding the verbiage to the UDC?
Right,
Pretty
right,
much.
adding the zoning
Oh,
district
Then that's what.
back to the
oh, it's what it-
UDC.
Oh, it's what it already is.
So,
Okay.
what, as with the previous case, we have the opportunity to, if you wanted to labor through it, to change wording within the text as presented by Ashley. The text, the zoning text is very thin for a complete
Yeah.
district. And as it's done that way on purpose, but it references other code sections, it references the uses that are allowed in business and light industrial.
Yeah.
It doesn't give individual design criteria, because those are found in other sections
In
of
other
the ordinance.
So it still has to conform to everything that's in the UDC?
That's correct.
Yeah, any new development has to conform to the UDC, so if it is a true industrial use, it has to conform to all of our industrial architectural standards that are set forth now. Residential doesn't apply to this because it's
It's
already
not there, right.
conditioned that it can't be residential, so, the old code, this zoning designation was very bare bones as well, because it referenced GC and LI. Or GC and I2, or
Yeah.
I1, whatever it was
I
called.
won.
So it mirrors almost exactly what the old code says, it's just a matter of updating it to say business and LI.
Right, so we're not
Actually,
rezoning it.
Remind me also,
Okay.
with the adoption of the UDC, we have broader buffers, and broader, I mean wider. So if there's a concern about, I know when this property was brought before us for rezoning, a lot of people came out and they were concerned about, I live on my 5 acres and I back up to it here. With the adoption of the UDC, was there greater buffers placed between dissimilar zoning districts?
So the transitional buffers is based on use, and then, so there's a greater buffer for if your zoning designation, begins with an R and is a residential use. And then if it's any other zoning designation, like ag, with a residential use, it's a little bit smaller. I think the difference is like 10, maybe 20 feet. And then, the, like uses, I mean, there's no transitional buffers between industry and industry, but there's a chart in the UDC that talks about transitional buffers based on use and zoning designation.
So I didn't think our previous ordinance had it, and I don't think it had a very detailed transitional buffer. I could be incorrect, but that was, I know, something that came up. And I know this draft doesn't, and neither did the former language address buffers between dissimilar zoning.
Yeah, there's a whole section on transitional buffers in the UDC, and it's based off of zoning designation and use, so it's kind of twofold.
Okay. Any other questions, comments, concerns?
Didn't you say the maximum building height was 75 feet?
80.
Yeah,
It is
this says-
it's 75.
Okay, it says 80 here.
So the conditions supersede what the code says. So
Okay.
the
So
conditioned
conditions
property
are-
is a little bit less. And the front setback, I think, is a little bit less. It's 50 feet for the front, and side is the 20 setbacks.
If that's the case, could we not
Y'all,
change-
you guys have,
is change the text of the ordinance to 75-foot maximum building height to match that condition? And I can't think of why we place that condition. To make it consistent.
I remember us doing that, but I don't know why we did it.
I don't either.
I think these were conditions that were also, and Sarah might be able, these were proffered conditions for, because.
This is what
the-
y'all brought and said, hey,
Yeah,
okay.
We encourage, again, this was something that we had agreed to and said we'll strengthen
What
the
did-
code to make it even
Is this what Judy
stronger than
wrote?
what was currently in place, and so that was one of the compromises, and we said, no big deal. Again, this was, again, to your point, these were some of the things, even looking at buffers and other things, we made it stronger, because again, the transformable areas and then also to the heights.
Is this what the text is what Judy Johnson wrote, right?
Actually, the original code was way back when in Baldwin County, because again, it was something done,
But
it was
Ju-
all adopted by all 4 counties.
Judy wrote something for Newton, for something, and it was different than what the original Stanton Springs was.
There were 2 at the time, so you had mixed-use business park and then business park. So mixed use allowed, as Ashley mentioned, different tiers, kind of discussed there. Business park did not allow tiers, didn't allow commercial or residential in that feature. This one is mixed-use business park, adding a commercial, but again, we made, again, the provision saying no residential whatsoever. That's not our intention at all here.
I think the original, for this property, and this is getting away from the text amendment, but for backstory, the original application for this property for rezone was Stanton Springs Business Park. And then you guys
That's right.
recommended denial, and then it went to
Yep.
mayor and council, and they downzoned it to mixed-use business park
Okay.
with these conditions.
That's right.
So,
That's
so,
right. That's right. 'Cause
Yeah.
That's right.
Stanton
just a
Springs-
refresher.
Yeah, the Stanton Springs has specific language about where it was applied to.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think there was some language in there about Shire Parkway and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and that was kind of where you guys were like, this doesn't make sense for us, so. If I remember and I only read the minutes for y'all's meeting, I didn't attend y'all's meeting, because my first meeting was the mayor and council meeting where this came.
Yeah.
Do you guys, as the owner and the marketer, 75-foot height is, y'all were fine with that?
Yeah, yeah,
Because
yeah.
As a
The same
condition?
conditions
And that's
are
fine,
fine
yeah, the
there, yeah.
conditions, right.
Yeah, we're fine with what's
We're not trying
stated.
to weaken the conditions.
Yeah, or change anything that what was done previously in the first adoption. We're fine.
Okay, I mean,
I think, if I'm catching the chairman's intent, he is asking for a motion to amend the text amendment to have the text amendment match the conditions as far as setbacks and building height.
I'm gonna make some motion.
Is that,
perfect.
take some of the speaking off.
Yes.
Is that how did, Ashley, do you have any qualms with that?
I don't, I can make those changes, and if, I'll redline it, and if mayor and council wants to change it back,
Then they can do that.
they can do that.
Great.
So, anybody like to make that motion?
I make the motion.
All those in favor, raise your hand. Thanks.
So I'm going to ask that we table the zoning 101 training until next meeting, because I know Curtis hasn't gone to zoning 101, and our newest member, Travis Parr, I don't believe has gone to zoning 101 either. So we'll just need to discuss dates, and if anybody else would like a refresher or to go back to zoning 101, it would be a good time,
I need to.
I'm sure. To throw your hat in the ring, and we'll see what we can, pull from our budget to send you guys to zoning 101, but Curtis and Travis definitely have to go.
So, under new business, since it is listed as new business, can I get a motion to table? We got a two. Is there a second? All right, all those in favor, raise your hand. Thanks. At this time, Chair adjourns this meeting. It's 8:16 PM.
You don't need a motion for that?
No.
Okay.
That's the only executive.